They say the moon goddess marks her chosen ones at birth. That royal blood runs pure and strong. That an Omega without her wolf is better off dead. Perhaps they are right. I waited 7 years for my wolf to emerge. 7 years of mockery, humiliation, and being treated like a stain upon the kingdom that the Alpha King tolerated out of pity for my late mother's service. 7 years of hearing whispers in the castle corridors and watching noblewomen gather their skirts as though my wolflessness might somehow infect them. 7 years of scrubbing floors while others danced beneath the full moon in their magnificent wolf forms. My name is Samantha of House Thornwood, and everyone called me the Cursed Omega. Right up until the moment the Alpha King claimed me before the entire court and my golden wolf emerged to make every kingdom kneel in fear. Want to know the truth about destiny? It does not announce itself with trumpets and banners. It does not arrive wrapped in silk and ceremony. No, true destiny waits in the shadows, patient and hungry, until you are broken enough to accept its price and powerful enough to make them all regret they ever doubted you. The great hall blazed with 1,000 candles, their light dancing across silks and jewels, and the hungry faces of nobles who had gathered to celebrate death. Alpha King Nathan had returned from the border wars victorious, and tonight the kingdom would feast in his honor. I stood in the shadows behind a marble pillar, a serving pitcher clutched in my trembling hands, watching a world I would never belong to. The nobles moved like predators dressed in finery, their wolves barely contained beneath their skin. I could see it in the way they moved, that fluid grace that marked them as something more than human, something I would never be. The king sat upon his throne at the center of the high table, a mountain of a man wrapped in black leather and battle-worn armor. His dark hair fell past his shoulders in intricate braids woven with golden clasps, and atop his head rested the crown of crescent veil, ancient gold worked into the shape of a wolf mid-howl. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Molten amber, burning with an intensity that seemed to pierce through stone and shadow alike. Eyes that had seen 1,000 deaths and delivered twice as many. He had not spoken since entering the hall. He simply sat, watching his court celebrate while he remained still as carved granite. Lady Isolde moved through the crowd like a swan among ducks. Her golden hair cascaded down her back in perfect waves, held in place by a circlet of silver moonflowers. Her gown was white silk that clung to every curve, proclaiming her beauty and her status as the High Commander's daughter, as the woman everyone expected would become queen. Her cold blue eyes found me in the shadows, and her perfect lips curved into a smile sharp enough to draw blood. "Time to serve the high table, little mouse," her voice carried across the hall, sweet as poisoned honey. "Or have you forgotten your place entirely?" Every head turned toward me. Hundreds of eyes, ranging from amused to disgusted to pitying. I forced my feet to move, carrying the heavy pitcher of wine toward the high table where the kingdom's most powerful sat in judgment. My hands shook with each step. The pitcher grew heavier, the wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "Careful now," Isolde cooed as I approached. "We would not want you to embarrass yourself." Again, laughter rippled through the nobles nearest the high table. I kept my eyes down, focusing on not spilling, on not giving them more ammunition for their cruelty. I began pouring wine for Lord Blackwood, the master of coin. When Isolde moved closer, her perfume overwhelming in its sweetness. "Tell me, Samantha," she said loudly enough for the entire hall to hear. "Have you felt even the slightest stirring of your wolf? Any sign that you might be something more than a defect in human skin?" My hand trembled. The wine wavered. "Perhaps the moon goddess simply made a mistake with you. Perhaps you were meant to be born fully human and simply ended up in the wrong body, a broken thing that neither belongs with wolves nor with mortals. How tragic." The pitcher slipped. Just for a moment, just enough. Wine splashed across the white marble floor, red as fresh blood, spreading in an accusatory pool at my feet. The hall fell silent. "Clumsy and wolfless," Isolde announced, her voice ringing with theatrical disappointment. "Tell me, my lords and ladies, why do we suffer such creatures to remain in our midst? Should we not banish those too weak to carry the moon goddess's gift? Should we not spare them the humiliation of living among their betters? A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. I stood frozen, wine dripping from the pitcher, my face burning with shame so hot it felt like fever. Then a voice cut through the noise, deep as thunder and twice as dangerous. Enough. Alpha King Nathan rose from his throne. The entire hall held its breath. He descended the steps of the dais, each footfall echoing like a war drum, until he stood mere feet from where I knelt in spilled wine and shattered pride. His eyes met mine. For one impossible moment, I saw something flicker in those amber depths. Not pity. Something else. Something that made my skin prickle with awareness. Then he turned to address his court, and the moment shattered. The Royal Council has granted Samantha of House Thornwood a fortnight to prove her worth to this kingdom, he said, his voice carrying absolute authority. If she cannot manifest her wolf by the next full moon, she will be exiled beyond our borders, never to return. Until then, she remains under my protection and subject to my law. Any who seek to harm her answer to me. His gaze swept across the assembled nobles, landing on Isolde with particular weight. Am I understood? A chorus of murmured assent. Isolde's smile never wavered, but something cold and vicious flashed in her eyes. The king returned to his throne without another glance in my direction, and the celebration resumed as though nothing had happened. As though my entire existence had not just been placed on trial with a fortnight to prove I deserved to live. I fled to the servants' corridors, my vision blurred with unshed tears. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Not here, not where they could witness my final breaking. Samantha. Wait. Alara appeared from a side passage, her healer's apprentice robes stained with herb juice and concern etched across her kind face. She was the only soul in this cursed castle who still looked at me as though I were human. I heard what happened. The whole castle has heard by now. She gripped my shoulders. But there might be hope. My grandmother, Morgaine. She is an elder seer, and she knows things. Old things. Forbidden things. Alara leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. She knows about wolves who shift late. About power that sleeps until it is awakened. Meet me at the eastern gate at dawn. I will take you to her. Hope was a dangerous thing. It cut deeper than any blade because it made you believe, and belief made the fall so much worse when it inevitably came. But I had a fortnight. 14 days until permanent exile or death. What did I have to lose that had not already been taken? Dawn broke cold and gray as I slipped through the eastern gate, my cloak pulled tight against the morning chill. Alara waited beneath the ancient oak that marked the boundary between castle grounds and wild forest, a leather satchel slung across her shoulder. We must hurry, she whispered. The guard changes at first bell, and I would rather no one mark our passage. We walked in silence through trees that grew thicker and older with each step, their branches weaving overhead until the sky disappeared entirely. The forest here felt different, ancient, as though we had stepped from the mortal world into something older and far less forgiving. After what felt like hours, we emerged into a clearing where a cottage stood as though it had grown from the earth itself. Stone walls were covered in climbing moonvine, their silver flowers glowing faintly despite the absence of direct sunlight. Smoke curled from a chimney, carrying the scent of burning sage and something metallic that made my skin prickle. Alara knocked 3 times. The door opened without a sound. The woman who stood in the doorway was ancient beyond reckoning. Her face was a map of wrinkles, her hair white as fresh snow, but her eyes were milky with cataracts, yet somehow impossibly sharp, as though she saw not with her eyes but with something deeper. So, she said, her voice like wind through dead leaves. The sleeping wolf finally seeks answers. Grandmother, this is Samantha, the one I told you about. I know who she is. Morgaine stepped aside. Come, child. We have much to discuss, and little time for pleasantries. The cottage interior was cluttered with dried herbs hanging from ceiling beams, shelves crowded with clay jars and ancient books bound in leather that looked disturbingly like skin. A fire burned in the hearth despite the morning warmth, and the air tasted of smoke and secrets. Sit, I obeyed, settling onto a wooden stool that had been worn smooth by countless visitors seeking forbidden knowledge. Morgaine studied me with those milky eyes, her gaze somehow penetrating flesh and bone to see whatever lay beneath. Then she reached out one gnarled hand and pressed her palm flat against my chest, directly over my heart. Heat exploded through me. Not pain, but power, surging from where her hand touched and flooding through my veins like liquid fire. For one breathless moment, I felt it. That presence I had always sensed lurking in the depths of my soul, closer than it had ever been. A golden light behind my eyes, ancient and vast and terrifying in its intensity. Then Morgaine pulled her hand back, and the sensation vanished, leaving me gasping. "Well," the old woman said softly. Well, what did you feel?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Is there something wrong with me? Am I broken? Broken?" Morgaine laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Child, you are not broken. You are protected. There is a difference. I do not understand. Your mother—" Morgaine began, settling into a chair across from me. "What do you know of her? She was a servant in the castle. She died of fever when I was 7. The king allowed me to stay out of respect for her years of service. Your mother was no servant." Morgaine's voice hardened. She was the bastard daughter of the old king's brother, royal blood running through her veins though she bore no title, and she did not shift until her 23rd year. My breath caught. That is impossible. Everyone shifts by their 13th year or not at all. Everyone ordinary, yes. But your mother was far from ordinary. When her wolf finally emerged, it was golden, massive, and possessed magic the kingdom had not witnessed since the first wolf herself, the legendary queen who founded this realm and whose power could command the very earth to obey. The fire crackled. Alara had gone very still beside me. Your mother's wolf was so powerful that the royal family feared her, Morgaine continued. They could not kill her outright without proof of treason, so they hid her in plain sight, called her a servant, kept her close where they could watch her. When she died, they called it fever. I called it poison. The room tilted. No, that cannot be true. Your wolf sleeps for the same reason your mother's did, child. Because the power within you is vast beyond measure. Too vast, too dangerous. Your wolf has been protecting you, keeping that power dormant until you were old enough, strong enough, wise enough to wield it without being destroyed by those who fear what you might become. Then why wake now? Why not continue sleeping until I am older still? Because you are out of time. Morgaine leaned forward. Your wolf knows you have a fortnight before exile. She knows that if she does not emerge now, you will be cast out, and all that power will be wasted, lost to the wilderness where it can serve no purpose. How do I wake her? Morgaine rose and moved to a shelf, retrieving a small vial filled with liquid that glowed like captured moonlight. There is a place in the Northern Territories, past the border markers where few dare tread, the Moonwell, a sacred pool where the veil between our world and the realm of spirits grows thin. I know the place. The stories say it is cursed. Stories often say that about places of power. Morgaine pressed the vial into my hands. 3 nights from now, the blackened moon rises. When the sky is darkest and the veil is thinnest, go to the Moonwell. Drink this elixir before you enter the waters. Your wolf will answer, and then I will shift? Just like that? Morgaine's expression grew grave. Your wolf will demand a price, child. All power has a cost. She will demand absolute devotion to your mate when he finally claims you. Your power can only be fully controlled through the mate bond, anchored by one strong enough to stand beside you without being consumed. My throat went dry. What if I refuse? Then you remain broken. Your wolf sleeps forever, and you face exile with nothing but your humanity to sustain you in the wild lands. Morgaine's voice softened. But if you accept, if you drink the elixir and enter the Moonwell and pay the price your wolf demands, you will become something this kingdom has not seen in generations, something they will fear, something they will have no choice but to respect. I looked down at the vial, watching the liquid swirl and glow as though alive. 3 nights, I whispered. 3 nights, Morgaine confirmed. And then, Samantha of House Thornwood, you will discover what you truly are. Whether that discovery saves you or destroys you remains to be seen. I tucked the vial carefully into my cloak and stood. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, child. The old seer's milky eyes seemed to pierce through time itself. What is coming will test you in ways you cannot imagine. But remember this. You are your mother's daughter. Her power flows in your veins. And power, true power, bows to no one, not even kings. The days following my visit to Morgaine crawled past like wounded animals dragging themselves toward death. Each hour stretched into an eternity of humiliation designed to remind me exactly what I was, what I would always be. Nothing. The head of household, a pinch-faced woman named Marjorie who took particular pleasure in my suffering, assigned me tasks usually reserved for the lowest scullery maids. I scrubbed chamber pots until my hands were raw and bleeding. I hauled buckets of water from the well until my back screamed and my shoulders felt like they might tear from their sockets. I mucked the royal stables, knee-deep in horse dung and flies, while nobles rode past on their magnificent steeds without so much as glancing in my direction. I was beneath notice, beneath contempt. I was simply there, like the stones beneath their feet, or the air they breathed, necessary but utterly unremarkable. Lady Isolde made certain I never forgot it. On the second day, she found me in the laundry chambers, bent over a washboard, scrubbing blood from some lord's hunting tunic. Her entourage of noblewomen followed like a flock of elegant vultures, their silk gowns and perfect hair a mockery of my soaked, stained servant's dress. How industrious, Isolde cooed, running one perfect finger along the edge of the wash basin. Tell me, Samantha, have you felt anything yet? Any stirring? Any hint that you might be more than what you appear? I kept scrubbing, kept my eyes down, kept my mouth shut. Speaking only made it worse. I thought not. She smiled, and I could hear it in her voice, that particular cruelty unique to those who have never known powerlessness. It must be agonizing, do you not think? To be surrounded by wolves and yet be less than human yourself. At least humans have the comfort of knowing they are what they were meant to be. But you are a failure at being the one thing you were born to become. Her ladies tittered behind their hands. I scrubbed harder, focusing on the rhythm, on the pain in my knuckles, on anything but the words burrowing into my skin like hooks. But Isolde was not finished. I have an idea, she announced brightly. Come, Samantha. The court convenes in the Great Hall for afternoon petitions. You should attend. It will be educational. It was not a request. I followed her through the castle corridors, water dripping from my dress, my hair hanging in wet tangles around my face. Every servant we passed averted their eyes. They knew what was coming. Everyone always knew. The great hall was filled with nobles and petitioners, the air thick with perfume and barely restrained wolf energy. Alpha King Nathan sat upon his throne, listening to some merchant's complaint about trade routes. His amber eyes were distant, focused on matters of kingdom and coin. He did not look at me as Isolde dragged me to the center of the hall. My lords and ladies! Isolde's voice rang out clear and bright. I have brought entertainment for your afternoon, a demonstration of what true wolves look like, so that we might all appreciate the moon goddess's gifts. My stomach dropped. Come, girls. Isolde beckoned to her circle of noblewomen. 6 of them stepped forward, their smiles sharp as blades. Let us show poor Samantha what she is missing. They began to shift. One by one, their bodies flowed like water, bones rearranging with practiced grace, skin giving way to fur. Within moments, 6 elegant wolves stood where women had been. A white wolf for Isolde, pristine and deadly. A russet wolf for Lady Clarice. A gray wolf for Lady Helena. Each one beautiful, each one powerful, each one everything I was not. They circled me slowly, a predator's dance, close enough that I could feel their breath on my skin, close enough that their wolves' eyes, bright with intelligence and cruelty, could bore into mine. This is power, Isolde's wolf seemed to say. This is what you will never have. The court watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked entertained. A few looked hungry, as though they hoped the demonstration might turn into something more violent. And Alpha King Nathan sat upon his throne and watched, His massive form radiated barely restrained power, his hands gripping the armrests until the wood creaked. But he said nothing. Did nothing. His protection, apparently, only extended so far. The wolves circled twice more before shifting back to human form, accepting robes from waiting servants with practiced ease. Isolde's smile was triumphant as she dressed, her eyes never leaving mine. "Do you see now, little mouse? Do you understand the difference between us?" I stood there, trembling with shame and rage, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "You are dismissed," Isolde said with a wave of her hand, as though I were no more significant than smoke. I fled. Through the corridors, past the kitchens, out into the courtyard where the evening air felt like ice against my burning face. I ran until I reached the small servants' quarters, where I slept on a straw mattress in a room shared with 3 other girls who whispered about me when they thought I could not hear. I collapsed onto my mattress, and finally, let the tears come. But beneath the tears, beneath the humiliation, something stirred. A voice, ancient and feral, whispered in the darkest corner of my mind. "Their mockery will turn to terror," it promised. "Their laughter to screams. They circle you now as though you are prey. But soon, little one, so very soon, they will learn what it means to be hunted by something far older and far more dangerous than their pampered, civilized wolves." I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling my heart hammer beneath my palm. And there, in that space where my wolf supposedly slept, I felt warmth, heat, something waking. I pulled Morgaine's vial from the pocket sewn into my undergarments, watching the liquid glow like captured moonlight. It pulsed in time with my heartbeat, responding to whatever stirred within me. 2 more nights until the blackened moon. 2 more nights until I discovered if I was truly broken or merely sleeping. 2 more nights until everything changed. The voice in my mind purred with satisfaction. "Soon," it whispered. "Soon they will all kneel." And for the first time in 7 years, I believed it. The blackened moon rose invisible in a starless sky, swallowing light as though the heavens themselves held their breath. I slipped from the castle wearing peasant's clothing borrowed from the laundry, my hair concealed beneath a rough wool hood. The guards at the postern gate were drowsy from ale, and I passed like a shadow, unseen and unremarked. The forest waited. I walked north, guided by Morgaine's whispered directions and something deeper, an instinct that pulled at my chest like an invisible thread. The trees grew denser with each step, their branches weaving overhead until no sky remained visible. Ancient magic saturated the air, making it shimmer and taste of copper and ozone. My skin prickled with awareness. This was no ordinary forest. This was a place where the veil between worlds grew gossamer thin. Hours passed. My feet ached. My legs trembled with exhaustion. But I pressed forward, driven by desperation and the voice in my mind that whispered encouragement in a language I did not recognize but somehow understood. "Almost there, little one. Almost home." Then the trees opened, and I saw it. The moonwell. It was perfectly circular, perhaps 30 paces across, the water so still it looked like polished glass. Despite the absent moon, the pool glowed with ethereal silver light that seemed to come from within its depths. White stones ringed the water's edge, each one carved with runes so ancient they predated the kingdom itself. Power radiated from those stones, from the water, from the very ground beneath my feet. This was a sacred place. A place of transformation. A place of judgment. I approached slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The vial felt warm in my hand as I pulled it from my pocket, the liquid inside pulsing with light that matched the pool's glow. "Drink, and there is no turning back." The voice in my mind, my wolf, spoke clearly now. "Drink, and accept what you are. What you were always meant to become." My hands shook as I uncorked the vial. The scent hit me immediately. Moonflower and nightshade and something metallic that tasted like blood before I even brought it to my lips. I drank. The liquid burned down my throat. Cold fire that spread through my veins like liquid lightning. I gasped, stumbling, dropping the empty vial as my vision blurred and sharpened simultaneously. The pool called to me. I shed my peasant's clothing and stepped into the water. It was neither cold nor warm, but something else entirely, something that defied mortal sensation. It felt like stepping into liquid starlight, into memory, into power itself. I waded deeper. The water reached my waist, my chest, my shoulders. Then I submerged completely, letting the moonwell claim me, and my wolf rose. Agony exploded through every nerve. Not pain, but transformation so violent it felt like dying and being reborn in the same breath. My wolf surged forward after 7 years of enforced sleep, no longer content to hide, no longer willing to protect me from what I must become. She showed me visions. My mother, young and beautiful, her golden wolf standing before kings who feared her power. My bloodline, stretching back through generations to the first wolf, the legendary queen whose magic had founded this realm. And him, a massive black wolf with eyes like molten amber, a king among wolves, the mate who would claim me and anchor the devastating power threatening to tear me apart. Accept, my wolf demanded. Accept the price or drown here in these sacred waters. What price? I screamed into the void between our souls. Absolute devotion. When he claims you, when the mate bond forms, you will be his as surely as he will be yours. Your power can only be controlled through that bond, anchored by one strong enough to stand beside you without being consumed. Accept this, or reject me now and die wolfless. I hesitated for only a heartbeat. What was devotion compared to exile? What was surrender compared to remaining broken forever? I accept. The transformation began in earnest. Bones shattered and reformed. My spine elongated with cracks like breaking branches. My skull reshaped itself, jaw extending, teeth sharpening into fangs. My skin split, not bleeding but making way for fur that emerged like liquid gold, glowing with its own internal light. I screamed, but the sound that emerged was not human. It was a howl, primal and ancient, filled with rage and triumph, and 7 years of suppressed power finally unleashed. My wolf was massive, far larger than any Omega had right to be, nearly the size of an alpha. My fur glowed like captured sunlight, so bright it illuminated the entire clearing. My eyes, I somehow knew, were liquid gold, burning with magic that made the very earth beneath my paws tremble. Power flooded through me. Not just the physical strength of the wolf, but something more. Magic. Ancient, devastating magic that responded to my will, that made the trees bend and the stones sing and the water of the moonwell ripple with golden light. This was what I was. What I had always been, sleeping beneath layers of shame and doubt. I was my mother's daughter. I carried the bloodline of the first wolf. And I was magnificent. I threw my head back and howled. The sound shattered the silence, echoing through the forest, across the territories, carrying on wind and magic to every kingdom within reach. Let them hear. Let them know. The wolfless Omega was dead. Something far more dangerous had awakened in her place. I stood at the edge of the moonwell, my golden fur still dripping sacred water, power thrumming through my veins like a second heartbeat. The visions my wolf had shown me lingered behind my eyes. The black wolf with amber eyes. The king who would claim me. Alpha King Nathan. Soon, my wolf purred. Soon he will know what he witnessed in that hall was not a broken Omega but a queen in waiting. Soon, they will all know. I turned from the moonwell and began the journey back to the castle. But I was not the same creature who had left it. That girl was gone, drowned in sacred waters and reborn in golden fire. What walked back through the forest was something the kingdom had not seen in generations, something they would learn to fear. Dawn broke crimson and gold as I approached the castle gates, my golden wolf finally resting beneath my skin like a second heartbeat. Every sense was heightened, overwhelming. I could hear conversations from hundreds of paces away, smell the fear and anticipation rolling off the guards at the gate, feel the pulse of every living thing within the castle walls. My wolf purred with satisfaction. This was what I had been denied for 7 years. This was what it meant to be whole. The guards stumbled backward as I approached, their eyes wide with something between awe and terror. They had heard my howl. The entire kingdom had heard it. echoing across territories like a declaration of war. The wolfless Omega was gone. Something else had returned in her place. I walked through the gates, still wearing torn peasant's clothing, my hair wild and tangled with leaves and moonvine, smelling of forest and ancient magic. Servants pressed themselves against walls as I passed. Nobles gathering for morning petitions fell silent mid-conversation, their wolves recognizing power even if their human minds struggled to comprehend it. Word had already spread. I could hear the whispers following me like hungry ghosts. She shifted. The cursed one finally shifted. Did you hear her howl? It shook the very foundations. Impossible. No Omega possesses that much power. I entered the great hall, where Alpha King Nathan held morning court. The massive space fell silent, as though I had severed every throat with my presence alone. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me, ranging from shocked to terrified to furious. Lady Isolde stood beside the throne in a gown of ice-blue silk, her perfect face twisted with disbelief and rage. "Lies," she hissed, her voice cutting through the silence. "Dark magic and deception. She cannot have truly shifted. It is impossible." Alpha King Nathan rose from his throne, his amber eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that stole the breath from my lungs. He descended the dais steps slowly, each footfall echoing like thunder, until he stood mere paces from where I remained motionless at the hall's entrance. The air between us crackled with power, his wolf and mine, recognizing something the humans could not yet name. "Shift," he commanded, his voice deep enough to rattle bones. "Show them what you have become." It was not a request. My wolf surged forward eagerly, no longer content to hide. The transformation was faster this time, more fluid, as though my body finally remembered what it was always meant to be. Bones shifted, muscles reformed. Skin gave way to golden fur that glowed like captured sunlight, illuminating the entire hall with light that made nobles shield their eyes and wolves whimper in instinctive submission. I stood before them in my true form, massive, far larger than any Omega had right to be. My golden fur rippled with power that made the very air shimmer. My eyes burned like liquid gold, and magic radiated from me in waves that forced every wolf in the hall to bow their heads, unable to meet my gaze. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Someone sobbed. Lady Isolde stumbled backward, her face drained of color. "Impossible," she whispered. "No Omega possesses such power. It is forbidden. It is wrong." But Alpha King Nathan did not look away. His eyes remained locked on mine, amber meeting gold, and something passed between us. Recognition. Inevitability. Destiny that neither of us had chosen but both of us would accept. Then he shifted. His transformation was violent, armor and crown clattering to marble as his body exploded into his massive black wolf. He was enormous, the largest wolf I had ever seen, radiating alpha dominance that would have brought any ordinary wolf to their knees. But I was not ordinary, and I did not kneel. We stood facing each other, black wolf and golden, power meeting power, dominance meeting defiance. The entire court held its breath. Then Nathan did something that shattered every expectation, every protocol, every rule that had governed the kingdom for generations. He approached me slowly, deliberately, and performed the claiming ritual. His muzzle touched mine, marking me with his scent. His wolf's voice resonated through the hall, speaking in the ancient language that all wolves understood regardless of human words. Mine, mate, queen. The mate bond snapped into place like a golden chain between our souls, and I gasped at the overwhelming flood of sensation. His strength poured into me, anchoring the devastating power that had threatened to consume me at the Moonwell. His possessive desire, his fierce protectiveness, his desperate longing for a mate who could stand beside him as an equal rather than cower in his shadow, and beneath it all, something deeper. Relief. He had been waiting, searching, hoping for someone strong enough to share the burden of his crown. The bond settled into place, unbreakable and eternal, marking me as his and him as mine before every witness in the kingdom. Lady Isolde's scream shattered the moment. "No, this cannot be. She is wolfless. She is nothing. She is beneath you." She lunged forward, her own wolf surging to the surface in rage and humiliation, but her white wolf barely made it 3 steps before Nathan's growl stopped her cold, a sound so full of lethal promise that she froze mid-stride. Trembling, the royal council erupted in chaos. Voices rose in protest, in shock, in fury that their king had claimed an Omega, had bound himself to someone they considered defective only days before. But Nathan shifted back to human form, accepting a robe from a servant who appeared with trembling hands. His voice, when he spoke, carried absolute authority that silenced every objection. "Samantha of House Thornwood is my chosen mate, my future queen. Any who challenge this claim challenge me directly and will face the consequences of their treason." His amber eyes swept across the assembled nobles, landing on each council member with particular weight. "Am I understood?" Silence. Heavy and absolute. Lady Isolde stood frozen, tears of rage streaming down her perfect face, her world shattered in a single moment. I shifted back to human form, and someone thrust a robe at me with shaking hands. The mate bond thrummed between Nathan and me, golden and unbreakable, marking me as his in ways that transcended law or custom. He extended his hand toward me. Not a command, but an invitation. I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and he led me up the dais steps to stand beside his throne, before the entire court, before the kingdom that had mocked me, humiliated me, tried to break me. I stood beside the Alpha King as his equal, his mate, his queen, and as the court knelt in reluctant acknowledgement, my wolf purred with satisfaction. They wanted to see power? We had shown them power. Now they would learn to fear it. The mate bond changed everything. I felt Nathan constantly now, a presence in the back of my mind like a second heartbeat. His emotions bled into mine and mine into his, creating a connection so intimate it was both terrifying and intoxicating. I could feel his wolf's primal need to protect me, to possess me, to keep me close and safe from all threats. And through that connection, my own power grew exponentially, as though his strength fed mine, and mine fed his in an endless cycle. It was overwhelming. It was devastating. It was everything the price had promised. 3 days after the claiming, Elara brought Elder Seer Morgaine to the castle through a servant's entrance, concealed beneath a hooded cloak. Nathan had granted permission for the meeting, trusting my judgment even as his council protested, allowing an outsider into the royal chambers. We gathered in a small sitting room adjacent to Nathan's personal quarters, away from prying eyes and listening ears. Morgaine studied me with those milky eyes that saw far too much, then turned her attention to Nathan, who stood with his arms crossed, radiating barely controlled alpha dominance. "You feel it, do you not?" Morgaine addressed him directly. "The power flowing through your mate, the magic that makes even your wolf submit." Nathan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I have never encountered anything like it. Not in any wolf, in any kingdom. That is because you are mated to the last living descendant of the first wolf." Morgaine's voice carried the weight of ancient knowledge. The legendary queen who founded this realm possessed magic that transcended normal wolf abilities. She could command any wolf, regardless of pack bonds or kingdom allegiance. She could speak to the earth itself and have it answer. And now, that power lives in Samantha. The room fell silent. Even Nathan looked shaken. "The mate bond you share does more than join your souls," Morgaine continued. "It anchors her power, prevents it from consuming her entirely. Without you, Nathan of Crescent Vale, your mate would burn herself to ash within a moon's turn. But with you, she becomes what she was always meant to be." "What is that?" I whispered. "A queen whose authority supersedes even alpha dominance. A wolf who can unite kingdoms or destroy them with a single command." Nathan moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. "Then I will ensure she has the training to wield that power wisely." And so the training began. Nathan taught me combat personally, taking me to the castle's private training grounds before dawn when the rest of the court still slept. He moved with lethal grace, a warrior king who had earned his crown through blood and battle. "Your wolf is powerful," he said, circling me as I struggled to maintain a defensive stance. "But power means nothing without control. An enemy will exploit hesitation, will use your strength against you if you do not master it first. He attacked without warning, moving faster than seemed possible for someone his size. I barely blocked, stumbling backward, my arms already aching. Again, we trained until my muscles screamed and sweat soaked through my training leathers. But with each session, I grew stronger, faster, more confident. The mate bond allowed me to anticipate his movements a fraction of a second before he made them, giving me an advantage that slowly closed the gap between his experience and my raw power. In the afternoons, he taught me politics, how to read the court's shifting alliances, how to identify threats disguised as friendship, how to navigate conversations where every word carried multiple meanings. Lady Isolde will not accept this, Nathan said one evening as we reviewed intelligence reports in his study. She has already begun spreading rumors that you bewitched me with dark magic, that the mate bond is false. Let her spread her poison, I said, surprised by the coldness in my own voice. Words cannot undo what the moon goddess herself has sanctioned. Nathan's lips curved into a smile that was more predator than man, spoken like a true queen. Late at night, when the castle slept and we were alone in his chambers, the walls between us crumbled entirely. He told me of his parents' murder when he was barely 18, assassinated by rivals who sought to claim the throne. How he had ruled alone for 6 years, surrounded by advisors he could not fully trust, bearing burdens no one else could share. I waited for you, he confessed one night as we lay tangled together, the mate bond humming with contentment. Every season, every moon, I waited for a mate strong enough to stand beside me. I had almost given up hope that such a woman existed. I am here now, I whispered against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my palm. Yes. His arms tightened around me. And I will destroy anyone who tries to take you from me. The mate bond pulsed with possessive devotion so fierce it stole my breath. But danger was already circling. The first assassination attempt came on a moonless night. I was returning from the library, my arms full of books on ancient wolf history, when a blade flashed in the darkness. Only my wolf's instincts saved me, forcing me to drop the books and dodge as steel whistled past my throat. The assassin was skilled, masked, and silent, but my golden wolf surged forward with a snarl that echoed through the corridor. I shifted mid-leap, my transformation faster than thought, and my jaws closed around the assassin's arm before he could strike again. Guards arrived within moments, drawn by the commotion. They dragged the assassin away for questioning, but he swallowed poison before revealing who had hired him. Nathan was furious, his wolf pacing his chambers like a caged beast, while healers examined the shallow cut on my shoulder where the blade had grazed me. This was orchestrated, he growled. Professional. Someone with resources and connections. Isolde, I said quietly. We have no proof. I do not need proof. I can feel it. My wolf's instincts were screaming danger every time the former favorite came near. Then we set a trap, Nathan said, his eyes gleaming with predatory calculation. But Isolde was more cunning than we anticipated. She planted rumors throughout the court that I had bewitched Nathan, that our mate bond was false, created through forbidden magic. Nobles who already feared my power began to whisper openly about having me examined by the temple priests, tested for dark sorcery, and worse, Nathan's spy master discovered evidence that someone within the castle had been sending missives to the Shadowfang Kingdom, revealing troop movements, supply routes, and defensive weaknesses. Treason, Nathan said, staring at the intercepted letter. Someone is inviting invasion. My power grew harder to control with each passing day. It responded to my emotions, flaring when I was angry or frightened. During a council meeting where Lord Blackwood questioned my legitimacy as future queen, I felt magic surge through me, and every wolf in the chamber fell to their knees, compelled by a force they could not resist. Nathan dismissed the council immediately, but the damage was done. They had seen what I could do. They had felt the ancient magic that made even their wolves submit against their will. That night, as Nathan held me in his chambers, I felt the mate bond thrumming with something deeper than desire. The magic between us built like storm clouds gathering, and when he kissed me, when his hands moved across my skin with reverent possession, I felt my power respond. We should wait, I gasped against his mouth, even as my body arched into his touch. The magic. It is too strong. I cannot control it. Then do not control it. His voice was rough, his wolf rising to meet mine. Let it consume us both. I am strong enough to withstand whatever you unleash. And when we finally joined completely, when the mate bond sealed itself in the most primal way, my power exploded outward in golden waves that made the entire castle tremble. Every wolf within the kingdom felt it. A declaration of bonded mates so powerful it transcended normal sensation. We lay tangled together afterward, both trembling and exhausted. The bond between us now unbreakable in ways that transcended even death. Mine, Nathan whispered, his hand spanning my throat in possessive claim. Yours? I agreed. And you are mine. But outside our chambers, Lady Isolde stood in a darkened corridor, her face twisted with hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. She clutched a sealed letter addressed to the Shadowfang King, her final desperate gambit. If she could not have Nathan, no one would. Not even the Golden Wolf who had stolen everything she believed she deserved. The letter detailed every weakness, every vulnerability, every secret that would allow Shadowfang to destroy Crescent Vale from within. And it was already on its way north, carried by riders who would not stop until war was inevitable. The blood moon rose crimson and heavy, staining the sky the color of fresh wounds. It was meant to be a night of celebration, of sacred ceremony where Nathan and I would be officially wed before the entire realm. The great hall blazed with 1,000 candles, nobles gathered in their finest silks, and the temple priests prepared the ancient rituals that would seal our bond in the eyes of both Moon Goddess and Kingdom. I wore a gown of gold silk that shimmered like my wolf's fur, my hair woven with moonflowers and threads of silver. Nathan stood beside me in formal armor, black leather and polished steel, his crown gleaming in the candlelight. He looked every inch the warrior king, and when his eyes met mine, the mate bond hummed with anticipation and fierce devotion. We were ready. The kingdom was ready. Everything was perfect. Then the warning bells began to ring. The sound shattered the ceremony like a stone through glass. Every head turned toward the windows where the night sky suddenly filled with howls, thousands of them, rising in a cacophony that spoke of war and death and violence descending upon us like a plague. Nathan's hand found the sword at his hip in an instant. To arms! Every warrior to the walls! The great hall erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed and fled. Warriors rushed toward their posts, and through the massive oak doors burst a messenger, his face streaked with blood and terror. Shadowfang, he gasped. Thousands of them. They are at the gates. We are surrounded. Nathan's wolf surged to the surface, his eyes flashing gold with lethal promise. He turned to me, gripping my shoulders. Get to the inner keep. Barricade yourself with the other women. Do not come out until I return for you. No. My voice was steady, cold, final. I am your mate, your queen. I fight beside you or not at all. For a moment, I thought he would argue. Then he saw something in my eyes, felt something through our bond, and nodded once. Then shift. We end this tonight. We burst from the castle into absolute carnage. The courtyard was already overrun with Shadowfang wolves, their gray and black fur matted with blood as they tore into our defenders. The air reeked of death and fear and the coppery tang of fresh slaughter. Nathan and I shifted as one, Black Wolf and Golden, and threw ourselves into battle. My Golden Wolf was a creature of devastating violence. I tore through enemy wolves with teeth and claws, my magic lending supernatural strength to every strike. But there were so many. Hundreds, thousands. They poured through the gates in an endless tide, overwhelming our defenses through sheer numbers. Where were the gate guards? How had Shadowfang gotten so close without triggering alarm? Then I saw her. Lady Isolde stood atop the wall in human form, her white dress now stained with blood. She held a torch aloft, signaling to the enemy forces, her face twisted with triumph and madness. The traitor. She had opened the gates from within. Rage flooded through me, hot and consuming. I launched myself toward the wall, fighting through a knot of enemy wolves, desperate to reach her before she could do more damage. But then a howl rose above the chaos, deeper and more commanding than all others. A massive gray wolf emerged from the Shadowfang ranks, easily twice the size of any normal alpha. His eyes burned silver as they locked onto me, and his voice resonated with power that made the very earth tremble. The Golden Wolf. Give her to me, and your kingdom will be spared. Resist, and I will paint these walls with your blood. The Shadowfang Alpha King. He had come for me personally. Nathan's answering roar shook the heavens. He intercepted the gray wolf before it could reach me, and the two alphas collided in a clash of fangs and fury that sent smaller wolves scattering. I tried to reach them, tried to help, but enemy wolves swarmed me, recognizing that I was the prize their king sought. I fought with everything I had, but there were too many, and my strength was beginning to fail. Then I heard Nathan's agonized yelp. The mate bond screamed with pain that was not my own. I turned to see him surrounded by enemy wolves, bleeding from dozens of wounds, and standing behind him with a dagger raised was Lady Isolde, her face contorted with hatred, preparing to drive the blade between his shoulders. No! Time seemed to slow. I saw the blade descending, saw Nathan unable to defend himself, saw the woman I had once pitied about to murder my mate. Something inside me shattered. My golden wolf erupted with power that transcended normal wolf abilities. The ancient magic of the first wolf, dormant for generations, finally awakened fully and completely. Golden light exploded from me in waves that cascaded across the battlefield like a breaking dawn. It was not heat or fire, but pure commanding authority that forced every wolf, friend and foe alike, to submit instantly and completely. Kneel. The word tore from my throat, amplified by magic until it resonated across the entire kingdom. And they obeyed. Every wolf on the battlefield, from the lowest Omega to the Shadowfang Alpha King himself, fell to their knees, unable to resist the ancient power flowing through me. The fighting ceased. Thousands of wolves knelt in absolute silence, their heads bowed in submission to authority that predated kingdoms and crowns. I shifted back to human form, standing naked and terrible in my power, golden light still radiating from my skin. A servant rushed forward with a cloak that I barely noticed as it settled around my shoulders. I walked through the kneeling wolves toward where Nathan lay bleeding. He shifted back to human form with visible effort, wounds covering his chest and arms. But he was alive. The mate bond pulsed with pain but also with fierce pride. I knelt beside him, pressing my hands against the worst of his wounds, and felt healing magic flow from my palms into his body. Not learned skill, but instinct. The first wolf's power responding to my desperate need to save my mate. His breathing steadied. His eyes opened, molten amber meeting liquid gold. "My queen," he whispered. I stood and turned to face the Shadowfang Alpha King, who remained kneeling, his silver eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. "You came to conquer," I said, my voice carrying across the silent battlefield. "You came to claim me as though I were property to be taken. But I am no man's possession. I am the last descendant of the first wolf, and I carry magic that makes even Alpha Kings submit." I walked toward him slowly, my golden power making the air shimmer with each step. "You will withdraw your army. You will swear allegiance to Crescent Vale, and you will spread word across every kingdom that these lands are under my protection. Any who threaten what is mine will face the full force of my wrath." The Shadowfang King's head bowed lower. "I swear it. On my life and my crown, I swear allegiance to the Golden Queen." A murmur rippled through the kneeling wolves. The Golden Queen. A title earned through power, not ceremony. Then there was Isolde. She stood frozen on the wall, her assassination attempt thwarted, her treason revealed before thousands of witnesses. Guards seized her, dragging her down to the courtyard where she stumbled and fell at my feet. "Mercy," she sobbed, all pride stripped away. "Please, I beg you, show mercy." I looked down at the woman who had tormented me for years, who had tried to murder my mate, who had betrayed her entire kingdom out of jealous spite. "You showed me no mercy when I was powerless," I said quietly. "You circled me like prey, humiliated me, tried to break me. You called me cursed, defective, less than nothing." Isolde wept, pressing her face against the blood-soaked stones. "But I am not you. I will not become the cruelty that shaped me." I turned to Nathan, who had risen to his feet with help from his warriors. "What does the law demand for treason?" "Death," he said simply. "Then let the law be satisfied. But make it quick. I will not torture even those who deserve it." Guards dragged Isolde away, her screams fading into the night. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only exhaustion and the weight of power I was still learning to carry. Nathan moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. Together, we faced the armies, both Crescent Vale and Shadowfang, all still kneeling in submission. "Rise," Nathan commanded. "The battle is over. The war is ended." Slowly, the wolves rose to their feet. There was no celebration, no cheering, only stunned silence as they processed what they had witnessed. The Shadowfang King approached, shifting to human form and accepting a cloak from his second. He knelt again before us, this time by choice rather than compulsion. "I offer more than allegiance," he said. "I offer alliance, united kingdoms under the Golden Queen's protection, an age of peace enforced by power too great to challenge." Nathan looked at me, the question clear in his eyes. This was not his decision alone. "Not anymore." "Peace," I said slowly, testing the word. "Yes, let there be peace. But know this," I raised my voice so all could hear. "I will enforce that peace with the same power that ended this battle. Any kingdom, any wolf who threatens what we build here will answer to me." The crowd erupted then, not with fear but with something close to reverence. They had witnessed the impossible. They had felt power that transcended normal wolf abilities. They had seen their queen. 3 moons later, I stood on the balcony of our chambers, watching the sun rise over a kingdom transformed. The wounds of battle had healed. The alliances forged in blood had held. And I, the wolfless Omega they had mocked and humiliated, now wore a crown beside the Alpha King. Nathan joined me, wrapping his arms around my waist and pulling me back against his chest. The mate bond hummed with contentment. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "The price you paid? The devotion your wolf demanded?" I turned in his arms, meeting those amber eyes that had witnessed my transformation from broken to powerful. "Never. Because devotion freely given is not a price. It is a gift." He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I felt our wolves purr with satisfaction. They had called me cursed, defective, less than nothing. Now they called me queen, and I had proven that sometimes the most powerful wolves are the ones who learn to rise from the ashes of their own breaking. So, where are you watching this story unfold? Are you here in the early hours of morning, unable to sleep, drawn to tales of wolves and power and redemption? Or perhaps you are listening while you work, letting the story transport you to kingdoms where Omegas become queens and ancient magic still runs through royal bloodlines. Tell me, what did you think of Samantha's journey? Did her transformation satisfy you? Did the claiming scene make your heart race? Did you feel the weight of her power when she commanded armies to kneel? Drop a comment below and let me know where you are watching from and what part of this story resonated with you most. Was it the humiliation that made you ache? The awakening that made you cheer? Or the final battle where she proved exactly what she was always meant to become? Your thoughts fuel these stories. Your engagement tells me what speaks to you, what makes you return video after video, hungry for more tales of wolves and mates and power earned through suffering. So comment. Share. Let me know you were here, because just like Samantha, your voice matters. Your presence matters, and I cannot wait to hear what you thought.